Lesson 01. Setup and first program. Print is the first function you learn in Python. It displays text on the screen. The text must be enclosed in quotes, single or double. Python executes code line by line, from top to bottom. Each call to print produces a new line in the terminal. With the import keyword, you load modules from the Python standard library. The SYS module contains system information, like the installed Python version. Each module adds functionality to your program without having to write everything from scratch. A variable is a named container that stores a value. In Python, you don't need to declare the variable type. Simply write name equals value, and Python automatically figures out the type from the assigned value. Here the variable name contains the string Marco. F-strings, introduced in Python 3.6, are the most modern way to insert variables into strings. Put the letter F before the quotes and use curly braces to interpolate. Inside the braces you can do calculations and use formatting like :2f to show 2 decimal places. Lesson 02. Primitive data types. Integers in Python have no size limit. You can calculate enormous numbers without overflow. Use underscores as separators to improve readability of large numbers. The type function reveals the type of any variable. In this case, the type is int. Floats represent numbers with a decimal point. Be careful though. 0.1 plus 0.2 does not give exactly 0.3. The result is 0.30000 with many zeros and a4 at the end. This happens due to the limitations of binary decimal representation. For financial calculations, use the decimal module. Strings have very useful methods. Upper converts to uppercase, len returns the length. Slicing with square brackets extracts substrings. Name from 1 to 4 takes the characters at positions 1, 2 and 3. Remember, the stop index is always excluded. Booleans true and false are the result of every comparison. Certain values are considered falsy, meaning equivalent to false, 0, the empty string, and none. None represents the absence of a value and is tested with as none. Casting converts between types. Int of the string 42 returns the integer 42. Lesson 03. Operators and conditions. Besides the classic plus, minus, times and divide, Python has 3 special operators. Double slash performs floor division, truncating the decimals. The percent symbol calculates the modulo, which is the remainder of the division, very useful for checking if a number is even. The double asterisk calculates the power. Comparison operators like greater or equal return a boolean. Logical operators combine multiple conditions, and requires both to be true, or requires at least one to be true, not negates the value. Here, can drive is true only if the person is at least 18 years old and has a license. The if block executes code only if the condition is true. Elif, short for else if, adds alternative conditions evaluated in order. Else catches everything else. Important, Python uses 4-space indentation to define code blocks, not curly braces like other languages. Wrong indentation generates an error. The ternary operator condenses an if-else onto a single line. The syntax is value if true, if condition, else value if false. Perfect for quick assignments. In this example, the score 75 is above 60, so the result is pass. Lesson 04. Loops. For and while. The for loop iterates over a sequence. The range function generates numbers. Range from 1 to 6 produces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Watch out, the stop value is always excluded. The loop body must be indented by 4 spaces. Here we print the 7 times table. The enumerate function returns pairs of index and element at each iteration. It's much more elegant than managing a counter manually. Python can iterate over any iterable object, strings character by character, lists, tuples and dictionaries. The while loop repeats the block as long as the condition is true. The while true with break pattern is the classic way to create loops with an internal exit condition. Break exits the loop immediately. Continue, not shown here, skips to the next iteration. List comprehensions are the Pythonic way to create lists in a single line. The syntax is expression for variable in sequence and optionally if to filter. Here we create the squares from 0 to 6, and then only the even numbers from 0 to 14. They are faster and more readable than traditional for loops. Lesson 05. Lists and tuples. Lists are the most used data structure in Python. They are mutable and ordered. Access is done by index, position 0 for the first element, -1 for the last. Slicing with square brackets extracts a sublist. Always remember, the stop index is excluded. The main list methods. Append adds an element at the end. Sort orders the list in place, meaning it modifies the original. Pop removes and returns the element at the given index. If you want a sorted copy without modifying the original, use the sorted function. Here we combine a list comprehension with an if filter. We generate the squares of only even numbers from 1 to 10. The result is a compact list created in a single line of code 4, 16, 36, 64, 100. Tuples are like lists but immutable. Once created, you cannot modify them. Unpacking assigns each element to a variable. Python's magic. The swap a, b equals b, a exchanges the values of variables without needing a temporary variable. Lesson 06. Dictionaries and sets. Dictionaries associate keys with values. Keys must be unique and immutable, typically strings. Access is extremely fast thanks to hashing. In this example, we create a student with name, age, and a list of grades. We calculate the average with sum divided by len. The get method is safer than square brackets. If the key doesn't exist, it returns a default value instead of raising a key error. To iterate over the dictionary, use items, which returns key value pairs at each iteration. Dict comprehensions create dictionaries in a single line. In this example, we convert prices from dollars to euros by multiplying by the exchange rate 0.92. Perfect for data transformations, filtering, and conversions. Sets are unordered collections of unique elements. They automatically eliminate duplicates. They support mathematical set operations, ampersand for intersection, meaning common elements. Pipe for union, minus for difference. Very useful for comparing groups of data. Lesson 07. Functions and decorators. Functions are created with the def keyword. Type hints document the types of parameters and the return value. They're not mandatory but improve readability and allow VS Code to flag errors. Default parameters, like rate equals 0.22, make arguments optional. Lambdas are anonymous functions on a single line. Here we use one as a sorting key for sorted. It sorts products by price, the second element of each tuple. They're perfect when you need a short function to pass as an argument. A decorator is a function that wraps another function, adding behavior before or after its execution. The id timer above the definition is syntactic sugar. The wraps decorator from functools preserves the name and documentation of the original function. Here we measure the execution time. Lesson 08. MySQL connection. The MySQL connection should always be in a try except block to handle network errors or wrong credentials. The connect method accepts host, user, and password. Fundamental security rule: never put the password in the source code. Use environment variables with OS. Get ANV. The cursor is the object that executes SQL queries. Create database if not exists is safe. It creates the database only if it doesn't already exist. The main MySQL types: int for whole numbers, varchar for text with max length, decimal for precise numbers, timestamp for dates. Auto_increment generates automatic IDs. After changes, always call commit to confirm. Show tables lists all tables in the current database. The cursor is iterable. You can loop through results with a simple for loop. Each row is a tuple, so we access the first element with index 0 to get the table name. Lesson 09. MySQL, CRUD. To insert data, always use %s placeholders and pass the values as a separate tuple. Never use f strings in SQL queries. That would be vulnerable to SQL injection, a very serious attack. The execute many method inserts many rows in a single call, much faster than a loop of individual inserts. Select with the where clause filters results. Here too we use the %s placeholder for the comparison value. Fetch all returns all rows as a list of dictionaries if the cursor is configured with dictionary equals true. The colon format in f strings aligns the output in columns. Update modifies existing rows. Warning: without the where clause, update modifies all rows in the table. After every modification operation, call commit to confirm the changes. The cursor, row count property indicates how many rows were actually modified by the operation. Lesson 10. Join in repository. Join combines rows from different tables through a common key. Here we join the orders and products tables to see the name, price, and quantity of each order. The as total alias creates a calculated column. Order by sorts results by amount in descending order. A transaction groups multiple operations, either they all complete with commit, or none with rollback. Here we update the stock quantity and create the order record. If either operation fails, rollback undoes everything, guaranteeing data consistency. The repository pattern encapsulates all database access in a dedicated class. The rest of the code never sees SQL directly. We use data class to define the product model with its fields. The repository exposes methods like find, search, insert. This pattern is fundamental for keeping code clean and scalable. Congratulations! You have completed all 10 lessons of the Python course. Coming soon, Streamlit and AI applications.